The Royals' opening day starter this year was Cole Ragans, who might have been the most hyped pitcher in the 2023-2024 offseason. We're all excited about the introduction of Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Shota Imanaga over from Japan, and other really great free agent pitchers like Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery, who, although signed late, should have big impacts on their new teams. Ragans might have been the one who was talked about the most. Given that Kansas City's a relatively small market and wasn't very good last year, fans might be surprised to know that Cole Ragans wasn't always a Kansas City Royal. In fact, he was actually part of the trade that sent Aroldis Chapman from the Royals to the Texas Rangers last year, which propelled the Rangers to win the World Series. Although I'm sure Rangers fans would love to have a starter like Cole Ragans in their rotation right now, especially given the current state of what the rotation is. I mean, why don't you tell me if Cody Bradford as your second starting pitcher strikes fear into the heart of opposing teams? It wouldn't for me, and I think the Rangers could really use Ragans in the rotation. With that being said, I don't think any team would have him back in the rotation if it meant not winning a World Series, and Chapman was definitely a big part of what was probably the Rangers' biggest weakness last year in their bullpen, propelling them to win the Fall Classic. In this video, we'll dive into Cole Ragans and his contribution to the Kansas City Royals as they look to be a surprise contender in the American League Central this year, and what the Rangers got back for him in Aroldis Chapman and where Chapman has ended up now. We all know the Rangers won the World Series last year, but both pitchers have an interesting trajectory going forward, and this video will dive into both of their outcomes. Before we get started, it would really mean a lot if you could subscribe to the channel. It helped me know that you like the content I'm making and will get you more content not only from me, but from awesome baseball creators out there as well. Without further ado, let's dive headfirst into this video and make sure to answer the question of the day: who do you think will be the breakout starting pitcher of 2024? Ragans was the 30th overall pick in the 2016 MLB draft by those Texas Rangers, signing for just a smidge over $2 million. He only pitched 7 2/3 innings in his professional debut, as a lot of college pitchers do. They either don't pitch at all, or they pitch a little bit just to get some innings under their belt, before really showing why he was a star and a first-round pick in the Northwest League in his first full season, striking out 87 batters in 57 1/3 innings pitched. He was ready to make his jump into full season ball before an elbow injury sidelined him for an entire year thanks to Tommy John surgery, and of course the next year, right before he was about to make his debut, another elbow injury occurred where he had to get his elbow reconstructed again and sat him out for another full year. This meant that Ragans, who was a top 10 prospect in the Rangers system for the first couple years after he was drafted, didn't pitch in 2018 or 2019 because of these injuries, and then missed all of 2020 as well because the COVID pandemic shut down minor league baseball. That basically meant that Ragans had 3 years where he did not pitch in a game. That is a long time, and that really hurt his prospect status. Coming back from one Tommy John surgery, although it's gotten a lot better, is never a guarantee. Coming back from 2 major elbow injuries and then a year off from the pandemic, that was not a good sign, and Ragans quickly dropped off prospect lists and was someone that a lot of people started to write off. After making his debut again in 2021, he cruised through high A, which made sense because he was a little bit old for the class, and put up decent numbers in double A, striking out about 9 batters per 9, so a strikeout per inning, not horrible. And although the ERA numbers were a little bit inflated in double A that year, a 5.7 in 9 games, things were looking good peripherally, and that's really what the Rangers wanted. He put together solid numbers in 2022 between AA and AAA as well, and that allowed him to get his first call-up to the major leagues, starting 9 games for the Rangers where things didn't go phenomenally. He had an 0-3 record with an ERA just shy of 5, but the potential was there. For Ragans, it was definitely a tale of 2 halves, one half with the Rangers, one half with the Kansas City Royals. He struggled mightily with the Texas Rangers, which was part of the incentive as to why they ended up moving him in the first place. Ragans put together a 2-3 record with an ERA nearly at 6 and a fielding independent pitching, which is a metric that looks at, if you remove the fielding aspect and only looked at what the pitchers threw, what an ERA would generally look like, and that was also above 5.25, which is very, very high. His strikeout rate of 22.6 wasn't great as well, and his walk rate of nearly 13% is not something that any pitcher really wants to sustain in their major league career. For a team that really wanted to win a World Series and did end up winning a World Series, it just wasn't a great fit right now. Ragans needed a change of scenery, something different, and the Rangers really weren't able to offer that. They needed to go all in, and when the Kansas City Royals said they wanted him for a proven reliever in Aroldis Chapman, the Rangers knew they had to say yes. Moving over to Kansas City brought out a whole new pitcher in Cole Ragans, and a lot of that is how the Royals decided to use Ragans and his repertoire. Ragans quickly established himself as a rising star in Major League Baseball and someone I wouldn't be shocked to see make the All-Star team simply based on the fact that he did really, really well in the second half in Kansas City, and it seems like that success is sustainable, which is not something you can always say about second half breakouts. It's very easy to look at his numbers and see just how good he was. A 2.64 ERA, and his peripherals like FIP and SIERA back up this number. His strikeout rate rose up to above 31%, and he brought his walk rate down to below 10% as well. Those two combinations made him a very effective pitcher, and again, those peripherals suggest that he is going to go and keep this sustainable in the future. What brought about this change? It's simple. A change to Cole Ragans' repertoire and his pitch usage. You see, when Ragans was a prospect, there were 3 pitches that people were generally decently excited about with him. A fastball, which in the major league level has touched 100 miles an hour and is probably his best pitch. A changeup that can really knock batters away. It's not the best changeup in baseball. There's definitely a couple players who have a little bit better, but it's one of the better changeups that you have. It's certainly a plus pitch, and a curveball that's slightly above average. That combination, along with decent control, was a big reason why people were excited about Cole Ragans. His repertoire was rounded out by a cutter that the Rangers helped develop, and that was what batters were to expect. A nice 4-pitch mix with 3+ pitches and a cutter that could be hittable at times. You can see on your screen that the fastball was used almost 50% of the time, which makes sense, especially for a starting pitcher with that dominant stuff, but his other 4 pitches had about equal usage, and hitters just ended up really taking advantage of not really needing to guess half the time on what was coming. Couple that with some control issues, and things just weren't a great mix. So when he came over to the Royals, they decided to tweak things a little bit and really try and enhance what Cole Ragans had in his arsenal. They introduced a slider, not a sweeper, but a true slider into Ragans' repertoire and cut significantly into that fastball usage. You're seeing the benefits of having that slider right now, and it's really made a big impact, allowing a ton of swing and misses and allowing batters to have to guess a little bit more as to whether a fastball's coming or what they could do. His slider had one of the highest swinging strike rates in all of Major League Baseball, but when you look at the leaderboard, most people who had a good slider used it above 30% of the time. For Ragans, only 14. That's a huge impact, and the fact he's able to use that pitch that's super effective, but also be able to control his other pitches and keep batters on their toes and guessing was a big reason for his breakout in Kansas City. Although the Royals did lose on opening day, I don't attribute that to Ragans. He put together a very good performance that I think will be reminiscent of the entirety of his 2024. I think he's going to make the All-Star team, and I wouldn't be shocked if he makes a couple more before he ends up either signing an extension or hitting free agency. Ragans is going to be a very good pitcher going forward, and Kansas City unlocked something in him, which gives me excitement for other pitching prospects in the organization. As Cole Ragans looks to build on his success so far in 2023 and his initial outings in 2024, there's another player who is part of this deal who has established himself as one of the best closers in the game and is looking to cement his legacy further. That, of course, is none other than Aroldis Chapman. Although Aroldis Chapman's time as the best closer in baseball is behind him, there's no doubt that he is a solid piece and is someone who can contribute to a bullpen's playoff run, just as he did with the Texas Rangers this past year. He's a flamethrower, routinely hitting above 100 miles an hour on his fastball, and although his control issues are a little weak, he definitely has the potential to just put away batters with flaming hot stuff. That ability was exactly what the Texas Rangers wanted as they entered the 2023 trade deadline with a big hole in their bullpen. They had Jose Leclerc, but nothing else really scared people when you looked at their bullpen, and they needed another arm. That's exactly where they got the idea to acquire Aroldis Chapman from, at the time, a very bad Kansas City Royals team, who he mostly signed for knowing he'd end up getting flipped to a contender at the trade deadline, and would therefore be able to play for a championship regardless. In reality, Chapman's probably a little underrated. Here's his 2023 Baseball Savant page, and you see a ton of red. And not just red, dark red, which means very, very good. 100th percentile, so best of the best at whiff percentage and strikeout rate. One of the highest expected ERAs and expecting batting average in all of baseball. An average fastball velocity of 99.5 miles an hour. He really does have a lot of the peripherals that just look good. His extension, which is how far you reach off the mound, is 95th percentile, which means batters have even less time to react to a 102 mile an hour fastball. So it seems like he has everything put together. The issues that have plagued him his entire career, which are that lack of control, are still there, unfortunately. That 14.5% walk rate is atrocious, and because of that lack of control, batters tend to not end up chasing at pitches outside the zone because they're most likely pretty far outside the zone. With that being said, Chapman definitely has the stuff to be a very good pitcher, and although he is entering his age 36 season, he still has the makings of a back-end reliever who you really want to rely on in the late innings out of your bullpen. And Chapman put together a very good campaign in Kansas City, which allowed them to trade him and get back Ragans in the first place. A 2.54 ERA, a FIP and Sierra below that as well, with a strikeout rate of 43.4%, and although that walk rate was really high, he showed that he still had the potential to be a great back-end piece for a bullpen looking to contend, which is exactly what both the Royals and Chapman were hoping for when he signed a one-year deal in the 2022-2023 offseason. Then, of course, the trade happened, and now he gets sent over to the Texas Rangers. Although his numbers weren't as shiny, they were still solid and helped him secure a deal this offseason as well. By no means was he bad in Texas, a 3.72 ERA with a FIP and Sierra slightly below that, and a strikeout rate near 4 is certainly better, and his walk rate was even lower than it was in Kansas City, but he did allow more than he did in the Royals organization, and that lowered his value a little bit in the eyes of the people. Of course, it doesn't matter because the Rangers won a World Series, and at the end of the day, that is what matters in baseball, is winning championships, but it's without a doubt that he was a little bit worse in Globe Life Field than he was in Kauffman Stadium. Now, Chapman is with the Pittsburgh Pirates after signing a one-year deal, and across 2 games since the time of this recording, he's had 2 perfect innings, not a walk, not a hit, and 3 strikeouts. For him, that's really good, and for the Pirates, who might be a sneaky team in the NL Central, with Paul Skeens waiting in the wings in AAA, and other players like Quinn Priester, who really did a great job with his first start in AAA this year, could be pushing the Pirates towards a surprise finish in first place or in a wild card in the NL Central. If that doesn't end up happening and the hot start they had in Miami does start to slip away, they could always trade Chapman at the deadline for someone to go ahead and get a bigger return and maybe push for a 2025 or 2026 window, which is probably a little more realistic. Regardless, Chapman in a Pirates uniform is something interesting and is something I'm excited to see more of this season. This trade might be the quintessential example of a win-win. For the Rangers, it doesn't matter what you give up really. As long as you win a World Series, you have won. And that's exactly what they did. Chapman was a big part of their bullpen in that World Series run, and without him, they probably would not have ended up winning it at all. For the Royals, yeah, you got rid of a rental that you knew you were going to trade away, and you got an ace in return. That is a huge win, and of course the Rangers would love to have him. I've already mentioned that, but you make this trade every time if you're the Rangers, and you make this trade every single time if you're the Kansas City Royals. Maybe with Bobby Witt Jr. and a couple other really young pieces that the Royals have, they make a push in a weak AL Central, and just like the Pirates, could surprise people this year. If not, they're able to go ahead and build off a bunch of young pieces, get a couple more puzzle pieces to get together, and maybe make a run next year, a little over 10 years after their initial World Series run. I'm really excited for the future of the Royals and the future of Cole Ragans, and I think he's going to be a superstar in this league. So thank you so much for watching. There'll be 2 videos up on your screen. Please go ahead and click either of those if you're interested, or that baseball in the middle, or the link in the description to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Again, it really means a lot. Don't forget to answer the question of who you think the breakout pitcher of 2024 is going to be in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.